Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to another episode of Beautiful, I Am Colored. My name is Evelyn, and I am the creator of this podcast, as well as the author of the book titled Beautiful, I Am Colored, which is still available on my website at beautifuliamcolored.com. Digital copies as well as hard copies are available. Okay, so hello, and what a week last week was for me. And I'm just like, was it something in the air, the water? I mean, work was super crazy last week. And oh my goodness, it's just been a lot. But before I get into that and talk about today's title, which is Pressure Released, that is the topic for today, I have to take a moment to do a few shout outs and thank yous, because after the week I had, and I did post this already on my Instagram and Facebook accounts, but before I say that, if you're new here, shout outs and thank yous is a segment of my podcast where I shout out a person, place, thing, or idea and just give gratitude for, it could be a big thing, it could be a small thing, but it's something that matters to me. So the first shout out and thank you I have is out to the young lady who works at the Chick-fil-A in my neighborhood. I was in the drive-thru yesterday picking up some lunch to take Marlon to work. And you know how like when they have the long lunch lines at Chick-fil-A, how they have all the different employees out taking your order, and then they might have a next booth they give you your receipt, or if you're paying with cash. Well, I placed the order, and then I got to the next section where the young ladies had given me my receipt. And attached to my receipt was a green Post-it, which green is my favorite color. And on the green Post-it, it said, "You can do anything." And when I tell you, I almost had a full breakdown in a Chick-fil-A drive-thru. I don't know if this young lady was doing it to every car. I really don't know. But it's the first time that something like that I had experienced something like that, and at that type of restaurant, that type of place. And it just really hit hard, because after the work week that I had, which was so stressful, and it could have been less stressful, but I don't like to talk about my work here, so I'll just leave that there. But it was just a crazy week, and I just couldn't get myself to going. The positivity that I'm usually able to produce, and reframe, I just didn't have it in me last week. I just didn't. And so that little message from the young lady at Chick-fil-A really helped me. And it's just like, okay, this is your sign, because I had been questioning, because I was having such a rough week and not necessarily feeling motivated, and not seeing the things move that I'm wanting to move, career-wise, podcast-wise, etc. And it was just that little sign that I needed, that you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing. And so I'm so grateful. The next shout out and thank you goes to my friend Kenny. She knows who she is if you're listening. First, thank you so much for being a loyal listener. I so value our friendship and our relationship and how it has grown in such a short period of time. But I also want to say, Kenny, thank you so much for introducing us to Damon. And such a great dinner and drinks the other night. And it was just so good to be around you again. I miss you so much. But thank you, because you definitely contributed to adding to my cup for last week, because my cup was running pretty empty. So I thank you so much. It's just so good to be around good people. And then last but not least, my last thank you and shout out goes to the one and only Marlon Barnes. And you guys know that I talk about him a lot on this podcast, because frankly, I think it's been like 31 years I think we've been together, and they'll be married for 28 in February. And I'm just so thankful for him, because, one, he stepped out on faith, launched his own business, left corporate, after a couple decades being in a certain industry. And it's just so good to see him follow his dreams and go down this lane. And also today is Sunday here, and it's a gorgeous Sunday. He went for a walk with me. So I typically would do like a more rigorous workout on the weekends. And if we're working out, like a hard workout, okay, I'm not going to work out with Marlon Barnes, because that's just the competitiveness, and I don't be wanting to hear the extra commentary. So no to the working out, but just leisurely walking is what we decided to do today. And that was so wonderful to just go out, just get a good walk in at the park for about 30 minutes, walk and talk. And so that was really nice and refreshing, especially on such a gorgeous day. So I'm thankful for all those things. And so now I want to get into my topic for today, pressure released. Because I think that's exactly what I was feeling like this past week, was just a lot of pressure. And I think I've also talked about this to you all before, and that is a lot of times when we're under pressure, the pressure that we put is put on us not necessarily by external forces or external people. It usually comes on the inside. At least let me speak for my week last week. It definitely came from me, because it was pressure about, like I'm frustrated at work, and then the frustration came out because I made the decision, right? Nobody put my hand on the computer and forced me to apply for the position I applied for. I have to take responsibility and accountability for that. Nobody is, forcing me to do any of the things, or how can I say this? Create any of the mental angst sometimes that comes with not necessarily being where you want to be or where you thought you should be in life, or in your career, or in your personal life, whatever it is. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I just need this to just not be right now, like just too much. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever experienced like something and you're just like, when is this merry-go-round stopping? And last week very, very much like that. But like I said, I think it really was because I was just so focused on all the things that weren't, like where you get off center. Right? Like most weeks, I have to admit, because I want to be fully transparent, most weeks I'm good. I'm fully good. But this week, y'all, this week right here, too much for me. And again, it's because I put the pressure on myself, because I do have such high expectations of myself, always wanting to be consistent in that and to operate with excellence, while at the same time or simultaneously, battling with not getting to the picture that I see in my head that I created, or that's displayed on my vision board, for example. And it's not to say that I haven't had glimpses of success. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like the pressure associated with not achieving that ultimate goal. And so what I've decided to do this weekend was, thankfully I didn't have any commitments, and it's a lot going on right now, but I didn't want to have commitments. There was no football game to go to this weekend because it's an off week for the Buffs, so that was wonderful. And so it's just like, no, this weekend I'm not going to commit to doing pretty much anything except for just recentering and doing the things that I enjoy to get myself back, so that I can do the thing that I really enjoy, which is talking to you all each week. Because as you know, as I share with you, I'm also sharing and building myself up. And then of course it also helps to have someone, if it's not a podcast, like an actual person who is in person. It helps to have other things that can feed into, who you are becoming, right? That future you that's waiting on you. It's so important to get yourself surrounded by people like that. And for me, I mentioned a couple of those people in the shout out and thank you segment. And then of course, Marlon always. And so it's just so good to just be reset, get my mind ready. It's a new week. It's a new day. I don't have to repeat last week. And even if this week is a hard week, I can make a different decision and get set up for success. And that onus and responsibility always falls on me, not anybody else. And then I think the other piece too, just to keep in mind, is that, when we feel ourselves approaching that wall where we feel like we're going to hit a wall, it's very important to go ahead and take the time that you need. Like, for example, I knew I was hitting that wall at work and not showing up as my best self. So Friday, I took a half a day. Like, I'm done at 12. And I really would have took a full day, to be honest with you, but I had too many pending things that were urgent to get this week of work set up. And so I took a half a day instead. And frankly, it was just the time frame that I needed. Of course, there's always more, but until it's time for me to move on and start my next adventure, you have to take breaks. If you work, and I'm pivoting a little bit here, but to all my listeners who work, high stress jobs in high stress environments that are also high risk, and you work on a lot of projects that have, detrimental impacts to people and multiple thousands of people, then you do understand what I'm talking about. And sometimes the weight of that can be so much, and it could be so incredibly almost like you can't breathe, right? It's just sitting on you, that it is imperative that you take, breaks and frequent breaks. And I would say, like, just to myself, for myself, one of the things that I realized and why I was so stressed last week too is because initially I had some things in place, and I got off my plan, right? So initially I had like at least one time a month I take a long weekend, regardless of if it's a holiday or not. If it's a holiday, it's a bonus, because now instead of having a 3-day weekend, I'm going to have a 4 or 5-day weekend. And I was doing that consistently every month just to give me that break that I needed to reset. And somewhere along the lines within the past 3 months, I would say I deviated from that plan. And, and I think that's why it's so important to stop and take an assessment and find out, what you're doing or what you need to do differently to get, the outcome that you so desire. And so that was a check that I needed to make on myself. And I was like, oh yeah, I haven't did that, since XX. Or maybe now I'm coming up on a season where maybe I might need to do even a little bit more than that. Maybe instead of taking one PTO day a month, maybe I'm taking 2 or 3 and spacing them out, whatever it is, because I do know that, the things and all the things that's going on in this world, my God, it can be really heavy, compounded with the regular day in and day out of whatever roles or whatever hats you wear, whether it's, you are a significant other, a spouse, a mom, a dad, auntie, or you're a caregiver for someone, and you work and you do volunteer and you do this, which tends to be my life, to be honest. And so I just want to remind everyone this week that it's okay. Pressure can be released. It can, but it's up to you, as always, because it's always us. It's always the individual. With few exceptions, it's always the individual who has the power, and the onus is on them to shift and make things different so that you can have the best day, week, month, year. All of that is within your power to do. And so that's the realization that I had last week. Not a major insight and perspective that I'm taking away, but nonetheless, it serves as a reminder. And one more friendly note, as we start to embark upon the holidays, which can be great for some people and not so great for other people, I just want you to be mindful of people in your life. Make sure you check in on them. There is still just so much going on in our lives, in our cities, neighborhoods, the world. Check in on people. If someone comes across your mind and you haven't talked to them in a long time, especially if it's one of your so-called strong friends who always has everything together, and they might just be one of those people who has everything together, but sometimes they need to be checked on too, and they need love and they need care as well. And just encouraging them to make sure that they take time for themselves can go a long way sometimes. Okay. That is all I have to give this week. I want to thank you so much, as always. I'm so humbled each and every week for the listeners who tune in. I look forward to continuing this podcast into 2024 and it getting even better. I also am very thankful for the relationships that I have built virtually. So thank you to those of you who that applies to as well. Okay, well, yes, that is all that I have within me to give. As I stated, I hope that everyone has a great week. In the meantime, remember, the future you is waiting on you. Have a great week, beautiful.